The scream cut through the crowded school hallway like a knife. Rebecca Hale, the new principal at Oak Ridge High, lunged forward, her body shielding the two girls who clung to each other in terror. "Back off!" she shouted. Her voice steady despite the blood already welling from a split lip where the enraged father's punch had landed. Mr. Vance's face twisted with fury as he towered over the trio, his fists still clenched. "You're encouraging this filth in my daughter's school?" he bellowed, spittle flying. Aurora Vance, 17 and trembling, pressed her face into Ella Sinclair's shoulder while Ella held her tighter. Their fingers interlocked so hard the knuckles whitened. The hallway had emptied except for a few frozen teachers, and the growing circle of parents who had stormed the building after the morning's incident. Rebecca wiped her mouth with the back of her hand, leaving a red smear across her crisp white blouse. She had been principal for exactly 11 days. 11 days of learning locker combinations, approving pep rally budgets, and smiling through small-town politics in Oak Ridge, Texas. She had chosen this conservative district on purpose, quiet, traditional, far from the ghosts of her own past. But the moment she saw security footage of Aurora and Ella kissing behind the gym, something inside her had snapped into place. She knew what came next. Calls for expulsion, whispers of moral corruption, and two bright girls stripped of their futures. "Not on my watch," she had muttered to her empty office before marching down to confront the gathering mob. Now here she was, tasting copper and staring down a man who looked ready to swing again. "Mr. Vance, the school has a clear anti-bullying policy. Physical assault violates it more than any kiss ever could." The crowd murmured. Phones were already out, recording. Rebecca felt the weight of every lens like a spotlight she had spent 20 years dodging. She glanced at Aurora and Ella. Aurora's dark curls were messy from the scuffle. Ella's glasses sat crooked on her nose. They were just kids, smart, kind kids who happened to love each other. Rebecca's chest tightened with a memory she had buried so deep it hurt to breathe. "Call the police if you want," she told Mr. Vance, voice low and even. "But these girls are staying in school. And you are leaving the property." He laughed bitterly. "You think you can protect them? This town won't stand for it. You'll be gone by Friday." Rebecca didn't flinch. She had heard worse. 20 years ago, her own father had said almost the same words right before he changed the locks on the family home in rural Georgia. She had been 18, fresh out of high school, in love with her best friend, and naive enough to believe truth would set her free. Instead, it had cost her everything: college dreams, family holidays, even her last name in certain circles. She rebuilt from nothing, earned her master's at night while waiting tables, climbed the education ladder one cautious rung at a time. Oak Ridge was supposed to be her fresh start. Sirens wailed in the distance. Mr. Vance stepped back, but the damage was done. Whispers rippled through the parents. "New principal's soft on that lifestyle. We pay taxes for this?" Rebecca kept her arm around the girls' shoulders as security arrived, guiding them toward the office. Inside, she locked the door and turned to face them. "You didn't have to do that," Ella whispered, voice cracking. "My parents are going to kill me." Aurora wiped her eyes. "Mine already threatened to send me to conversion camp again." Rebecca's stomach dropped. She knew that threat intimately. Sitting on the edge of her desk, she chose her words carefully. "Listen to me. You are not alone. Not here, not anymore. I will fight for you. But you have to trust me and stay strong." The girls nodded, but Rebecca saw the fear in their eyes. She recognized it because it had once been hers. As the police took statements outside, she stared at the closed blinds and wondered how long she could keep her own secret buried before the same fire that had scorched her life 20 years ago came roaring back to claim this one. By afternoon, the local news had picked up the story. "New principal attack defending lesbian students," the headline read. Rebecca's phone buzzed nonstop. School board members, concerned parents, and one number she hadn't seen in years: her sister Margaret. She let it ring to voicemail. She couldn't face that voice yet. Not when the girls were still waiting in the conference room with their backpacks and shattered expressions. She poured 3 glasses of water and sat across from them. "Tell me everything. From the beginning." Aurora spoke first, voice small. "We've been together since sophomore year. We were careful until today. Someone saw us and told my dad." Ella reached for Aurora's hand under the table, a small gesture that made Rebecca's throat close. She remembered sneaking those same touches in library corners, hearts hammering at every footstep. "We'll file a formal complaint against Mr. Vance," Rebecca said. "And I'm calling an emergency board meeting for tomorrow. You two are safe here." But as the girls left with a counselor, Rebecca leaned against her desk and closed her eyes. Safe. The word tasted like a lie she had told herself for 2 decades. She opened her bottom drawer and pulled out the only photo she still kept. A faded snapshot of her at 18, laughing beside a girl with sun-bleached hair on the banks of the Chattahoochee River. She traced the edge of the print, then slid it back into darkness. Outside, the Texas sun beat down on the parking lot where news vans were already setting up. Rebecca straightened her blazer, touched the cut on her lip, and stepped into the storm she had just invited. The school board meeting the next morning felt like walking into a firing squad. Rebecca arrived early, heels clicking against the polished linoleum of the administration building. She had spent the night drafting statements, citing policy, quoting statistics on youth mental health. None of it would matter if the board saw only the headlines. Chairman Harlan Whitaker, a rancher with a silver belt buckle the size of a hubcap, rapped his gavel. "Principal Hale, care to explain why we're making national news on your second week?" Rebecca stood at the podium, spine straight. "I explained it in my report. Mr. Vance assaulted 2 students and me. The girls were not violating any code of conduct. They were simply existing." A murmur swept the room. Parents packed the back rows. Mr. Vance sat front and center, arms crossed. Beside him, Aurora's mother stared at the floor. "Existing," Harlan repeated. "Kissing on school grounds is not existing, ma'am. It's flaunting." Rebecca's hands tightened on the podium. "Flaunting what? Love? Because if that's the new standard, we'll have to expel half the football team for making out under the bleachers every Friday." Gasps. A few board members shifted uncomfortably. Rebecca pressed on. "I took this job to protect every student. That includes Aurora Vance and Ella Sinclair. If we punish them for who they are, we're teaching every kid in this building that fear is the price of honesty." The room erupted. Harlan banged the gavel again. "We'll vote on disciplinary action for the girls at the end of the week. In the meantime, Principal Hale, you are on administrative leave pending review." Rebecca felt the words like a slap. Administrative leave. The polite way of saying we're watching you. She gathered her notes and walked out under a barrage of camera flashes. In the hallway, Aurora and Ella waited, eyes wide. "They can't do this," Aurora said. "They just did," Rebecca replied softly. "But I'm not done fighting." That evening her phone finally rang again. "Margaret." Rebecca answered on the 4th ring. "Becca? What in God's name is going on down there?" Her sister's voice was sharp with the same southern drawl that used to comfort her. "Daddy saw the news. He's having chest pains again. You promised you'd keep your lifestyle quiet." Rebecca closed her eyes. "It's not about me, Maggie. It's about 2 kids who need someone in their corner. You think you're helping them? You're dragging our family name through the mud again. After everything we went through to put the past behind us." The past. Rebecca could still hear the slam of the front door the night her father had thrown her suitcase onto the porch. "No daughter of mine is going to hell under my roof." She had slept in her car for 3 weeks. "I'm not dragging anyone," she said quietly. "I'm just trying to keep history from repeating." Margaret's laugh was bitter. "History has a way of catching up. You should remember that before you lose everything again." The call ended. Rebecca stared at the blank screen. She had built a life here. No partner, no children, just work and careful distance. Now the distance was collapsing. The next morning the girls showed up at her apartment unannounced. Ella carried a bakery box. Aurora clutched a laptop. "We brought evidence," Aurora said. "Screenshots of the bullying messages. Proof Dad started the rumors." They sat at Rebecca's kitchen table while she read through the vile texts. Threats. Slurs. One message from an anonymous account. "Your dyke principal won't save you forever." Rebecca's stomach turned. She recognized the hatred. It had once been aimed at her. "I'm going public," she told them. "A press conference tomorrow. I'll demand the board reverse the leave and drop any punishment against you." Ella's eyes filled. "You'll lose your job." "Maybe," Rebecca admitted. "But some things are worth losing." As the girls left, Rebecca stood at the window watching them walk hand in hand down the street. For the first time in 20 years she felt the old ache. Not just for herself, but for every version of Aurora and Ella who never had a protector. She opened her closet and pulled out the suit she had worn to her master's graduation, the one she had bought with her first real paycheck. She would wear it tomorrow. Armor for the war she could no longer avoid. The press conference drew cameras from Austin and Dallas. Rebecca stood on the school steps in the morning light, the cut on her lip still visible under makeup. Microphones bristled like weapons. "I was hired to lead," she began, voice carrying across the crowd. "Not to police love. Aurora Vance and Ella Sinclair have done nothing wrong except exist as who they are in a town that wants to punish them for it." Reporters shouted questions. "Are you saying the school supports homosexuality?" "I'm saying the school supports safety," Rebecca shot back. "And if that makes some people uncomfortable, perhaps the problem isn't the students." From the edge of the crowd, Mr. Vance pushed forward. "You're turning our kids against God." Security moved in, but the damage spread. That afternoon the school board released a statement. Principal Hale's contract was under immediate review for failure to uphold community values. Rebecca drove straight to the girls' favorite coffee shop after the conference. They were waiting in a corner booth, faces pale. "I'm sorry," she said, sliding in beside them. "I thought I could shield you without this blowing up." Aurora shook her head. "You did more than anyone ever has. But my mom called this morning. She's taking me to see a counselor next week. The kind that prays the gay away." Ella's voice was barely a whisper. "My parents are talking about military school for me. Separate us." Rebecca felt the old rage rise. The same rage that had kept her alive on park benches and in cheap motels 20 years ago. She reached across the table and covered both their hands with hers. "That is not going to happen. I still have friends in the state education department. We'll file for protective orders if we have to." But that night, alone in her apartment, the weight pressed down. Her phone lit up with a text from Margaret. "Daddy's in the hospital. Stress. He keeps asking why you're doing this to us again." Rebecca stared at the message until the screen went dark. Family or truth? The choice she had been running from since she was 18. The next morning she found a note taped to her office door. Now sealed with yellow caution tape. "Go back where you came from, dyke lover." She ripped it down, heart hammering. Inside the empty office she sat at her desk and opened the bottom drawer. The old photo stared up at her. She had loved that girl with every reckless piece of her heart. They had planned a future, college, an apartment, maybe a dog. Then the rumors reached her father and the future vanished overnight. Rebecca slipped the photo into her wallet. She needed the reminder now more than ever. The betrayal came on a Thursday. Rebecca was in the middle of drafting an appeal when her phone rang. The school board secretary's voice was clipped. "There's been a new development, Principal Hale. We received documentation from a family member about your history. The board is reconvening in an hour." Family member. Rebecca's blood turned to ice. She drove to the meeting in a fog. When she walked into the conference room, Margaret sat in the front row beside their father in a wheelchair, oxygen tube in his nose. Harlan Whitaker slid a folder across the table. "Care to explain these, Ms. Hale?" Inside were printed articles from 20 years ago. Local teen expelled after lesbian affair rocks church community. Her senior photo. The girl she had loved. Rebecca's stomach lurched. Margaret wouldn't meet her eyes. "I had to, Becca. For Daddy. He deserves peace before he dies." The room spun. Rebecca gripped the table. "You leaked my past to destroy me?" "I leaked the truth," Margaret said flatly. "You're not fit to lead these children when you're living the same sin." Rebecca looked at her father. His eyes, once full of fire, were cloudy with age and disappointment. "Is this what you wanted?" she asked him quietly. He didn't answer. He never had. The board voted unanimously to terminate her contract effective immediately. Security escorted her out while cameras flashed. Outside, Aurora and Ella stood on the sidewalk, tears streaming. "They can't do this," Aurora cried. "They just did," Rebecca said. Her voice sounded distant even to herself. That night the girls showed up at her door with pizza and determination. "We're not letting you go through this alone," Ella said. They ate in silence until Aurora spoke. We told our parents we're moving in with you temporarily. Protective custody or whatever you want to call it. We're 18 in a month. They can't stop us." Rebecca stared at them. Two girls willing to risk everything because one woman had risked everything for them. The weight of that responsibility settled over her like a blanket. "I lost my job," she said. "My reputation. My family." Ella reached for her hand. "But you didn't lose yourself. And you didn't lose us." For the first time in 20 years, Rebecca cried. Not for the girl she had been, but for the woman she was finally becoming. The final school board meeting was open to the public. Rebecca arrived early, no longer principal but still a citizen. She sat in the back row wearing the same suit from her press conference. Aurora and Ella sat on either side of her, shoulders squared. When the public comment period opened, Rebecca stood. The room hushed. "My name is Rebecca Hale," she began, voice clear. 20 years ago I was forced out of school for loving a girl. I lost my family, my home, my future. I spent 2 decades hiding so I would never lose anything again. Today I'm done hiding." She turned to face the board. "You fired me for protecting 2 students who are braver than I ever was at their age. But bravery is contagious. Aurora and Ella taught me that. So here is my truth. I am a lesbian. I always have been. And if protecting these girls costs me everything, then I pay it gladly." Gasps rippled. Mr. Vance stood, but security held him back. Rebecca kept speaking. "I will not ask this board to change its mind about me. But I will ask every parent here to look at your children and ask what kind of world you want them to inherit. One where fear wins or one where love does." She sat down. The room was silent for a long moment. Then Aurora stood. "Principal Hale saved my life," she said simply. "That's all I have to say." Ella followed. "Mine too." One by one, students began to stand. Teachers. Even a few parents. The wave of solidarity grew until the board looked small behind their long table. Harlan Whitaker cleared his throat. "The vote on reinstatement is tabled until further review." But everyone knew the tide had turned. Outside, cameras surrounded them. Rebecca pulled Aurora and Ella close. "Whatever happens next," she told them, "we face it together." 3 weeks later, Rebecca sat on the porch of a small rental house on the edge of town. The girls had moved in temporarily, turning the living room into a study space filled with college brochures and hope. Her phone buzzed. Another job offer from a progressive district in Austin. She hadn't answered yet. Margaret had sent one text. "I'm sorry. Daddy's asking for you." Rebecca hadn't replied. Some bridges, once burned, needed time before anyone could cross the ashes. Aurora stepped outside with 2 glasses of lemonade. Ella's on the phone with her mom. Sounds like they might actually talk. Rebecca smiled. Good. That's how it starts. They sat in silence watching the sunset paint the Texas sky orange and pink. Aurora leaned her head on Rebecca's shoulder, the same way Rebecca had once leaned on her own lost love. "You know," Aurora said quietly, "I used to think being gay meant I'd always have to choose between love and family. You showed me I don't." Rebecca's eyes stung. "You showed me the same thing." Ella joined them, phone still in hand. "Mom said she wants to meet you. Properly." Rebecca laughed softly. "Tell her I make terrible coffee but great pancakes." As the stars came out, Rebecca thought of the girl in the faded photo now framed on her nightstand. She had finally stopped running from her. The fight wasn't over. Lawsuits loomed, family wounds still bled, and the town remained divided. But for the first time in 20 years, Rebecca Hale was living her truth in daylight. And 2 girls who once hid in shadows now walked in the sun. True or false? Hiding your true identity is the only way to protect the people you love in a world that demands conformity.